Energy. Good. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, so I was just telling her like how, I know I have an hour, so you're stuck with me for an hour. I'll tell you an interesting story to start with. So when you talk about last names, Vadakkuppattu is the name of my native place. When I was applying to go to the US, they put that as my last name. I thought, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I didn't realize that was going to be the last name for the rest of my life. So, when I call a credit card company now and they tell, sir, can you explain your last name? I go, King Kong, KK, ping pong, as in ping pong. So it's, the name becomes an interesting way to open a conversation. So I'm a product manager at Monotype. So I actually started as an engineer, an RF engineer. I used to build radios, and then I moved into product management. Now I mentioned that for two reasons. One thing is, I always thought what I did was super complex. And for me, one of the biggest takeaways from the last 2 days is type is complex. So the next time someone tells, just pick a font, I'm going to tell them, do you know how much complexity there is behind the scenes? Because I think there is a lot of complexity. And I think, they tell simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. The fact that most people like me, the common man, doesn't know all the complexities behind the scenes is a wonderful testament to the work done by you guys, because I just go pick a font. That's it. There's so much complexities that's handled by the type designers, the technologists. So that's one piece of it. So the second thing is, the reason I moved into product management from engineering was because I loved working with customers, understanding what problems they had, and helping them solve the problems. In today's session, what I'm going to talk about is, as a product manager, what have we learned? We spent a lot of time talking to people, 75 plus customers. We've spoken to them, asked them, hey, what are you doing for AR, VR? And that is what we want to cover in today's session. If there's one thing I want you to walk away from this session, it's essentially, what is happening from an ecosystem standpoint, right? What are people doing when it comes to AR, VR? And what opportunities does that open up for you? Okay, I know that's not one thing, that's two things, but you get the point. What I want you to walk away from this presentation is essentially what's happening from a industry standpoint. I know a lot of people spoke about AR, VR before me, so and I'm particularly thankful to Laura. I can't see her in the crowd, but she paved the road for me very nicely. She brought up a lot of topics that are relevant. So I'm going to pick up on where she left. So before we get started, quick show of hands. How many have used an AR or a VR? AR or VR? Put up your hands. You don't have to be shy. If you've used Pokemon Go, you can still put up your hands. I won't discriminate. Okay, good. A fair number of people here, right? So, whenever you have a new medium, whether it is AR, VR, whenever you have a new medium, things are always changing. There are always new terms that come up, so it's always good to do a table set. So we start by looking at the different kinds of reality that are there. The first thing is actual reality. Reality can be fun, like the last 2 days where you have with people talking about what's coming, or it can be a little bit not so much fun. So that's a picture I took in Boston in the middle of a snowstorm. So, okay, you know what, you're tied with whatever you have. So that is reality on one end of the spectrum. And then you have augmented reality. And as the name suggests, what you do is you take this reality that you have and you augment it with information on top. Now, the information that you have on top can be text, it can be characters, and this information can be static, it can be dynamic, it can be interactive. So it's essentially taking the reality and augmenting it with information on top of it. And then the other end of the spectrum is virtual reality, where, okay, Vivek, I feel bad for you. You're stuck in a snowstorm in Boston. I'm putting you in Hawaii. That didn't happen for me, unfortunately, so I have to use virtual reality, right? But that's what it is. So you have this spectrum, and I think I like to look at it this way, because it's not discrete moments. It's really a continuum. Now, I'm sure there are people in the audience who are thinking of, hey, what about merged reality? What about interactive reality? There are other kinds of mixed reality. What about other kinds of reality? The beauty of us looking at it this way is all of those things fall somewhere in the spectrum. I look at mixed reality, that could be under augmented reality. So when you look at it as a continuum, you have different kinds of reality, and whenever a new kind of reality comes up, it can fall somewhere in between. Having said that, let's look at some of the trends that are relevant. So, we'll start off with some generic market trends, and then we'll talk about text. So the first thing is, I tried to draw this nicely, but to me, it's a classic chicken and egg situation. So whenever you have a new platform, think of smartphones, right? When smartphones came out, you need two things for any medium to be successful. You need people to use it, and then why would people use it? You also need content there. So you almost have this push and pull going on at the same point in time. So on the left, you have people who need to buy VR or AR equipment. So, and then if you're a developer, whether you're designing a font or whether you're an app developer, you want to make sure there are enough people, because why would you go spend your cycles building something when there is no one to consume it, right? Like someone told yesterday, sometimes you do it, I do it too many times just because it's fun, but then you've got to pay your rent too. So you want to do something where there's an opportunity. And what you find is a big part of what has been impacting uptick or adoption has been cost. When you look at it from a consumer standpoint, yeah, I can use my smartphone and I can consume AR, VR, but for the most part of it, it's still very expensive. You've got to spend a couple of $100, or you have to spend $1,000 or $2,000 to have a good VR experience. That's one piece of it. Now, when you look at it from a developer standpoint, people on the right side, for you to go develop content, you need two things. Obviously, you need people who want to consume it, but you also need tools. You need equipment, software to build it. And I think that's where what you find is, as an ecosystem, Bob showed this yesterday where he'd built a demo using Unity. So you have Unity, you have Unreal, but there are also a lot of open source or free alternatives, Amazon, Sumerian. There are tons of platforms that are coming up. So I think a key part for us to break out of this chicken egg situation is you need to see some more adoption here on the device side, and then obviously it makes it easier for us to then go create content. The second thing that you see is AR is definitely becoming more and more commonplace. So it was interesting, like a couple of months back, I was in India. I was visiting my aunt. She's 80 years old, so not too connected in terms of technology. So I told her, I was talking to her, then I told her, I'm just going to go walk around and come back. She's like, don't tell me you're searching for Pokemons. Okay, so I thought, here's someone who's like really, really disconnected from everything else, and still she knows Pokemons, right? So I bring that up for two reasons. The first thing is, you always need a killer app. Pokemon Go was fun, and I mean, they've done a wonderful thing, but that was a killer app. That put AR in the minds of so many people. It got you the mind share, so that is what you need. You need a killer app. Now, obviously, a lot of what I'm telling is on the consumer side. We'll talk about enterprise later on, so you need a killer app. That's one thing. The second thing is, why do you think Pokemon Go became so popular? Other than the fact it's fun, that's a given, okay? What is the other reason? Why do you think Pokemon Go is popular? Okay, it's free. What else? Gamification.
Platform. Everybody has it.
Oh, good answer. And I promise I did not plant that answer there. But that is true. See, what you want is some easy way for people to consume the content, right? If I tell you you have to buy a dedicated piece of hardware, no one wants to do. I wouldn't tell no one wants to do that, but that just creates more friction. The beauty of mobile AR is the fact that everyone is able to consume AR through something that all of us hold near and dear to us. I freak out in the morning if I can't find my phone next to me. I'm sure most of you are that way too, right? So by making AR and VR accessible on a phone, you've all of a sudden solved that. That dollar sign, you make it easy. You make it a lot easy for people to experience AR, VR. Now, in the last 6 to 8 months, what we've seen personally is there's a lot more interest on the AR side compared to VR, just because more people have access to it. Hundreds of millions of people have access to AR, thanks to Apple's AR Kit, Google's AR Core, Facebook's AR Studio, Snap's Lens Studio, and then a whole bunch of other platforms, essentially making AR accessible through a smartphone. Now, obviously, on the VR side, what you find is people realize that for VR to play well, you need to have devices that are accessible, and that is where the standalone devices come up, and Laura mentioned that in her previous presentation. Whether it's Oculus Go, the Vive Pro, people are coming up with standalone devices around $200, which are affordable, but still give you a good amount of immersiveness. What's the other thing that you notice? The other thing that you see a lot of is device fragmentation. What does that mean? What do we mean by device fragmentation?
Different sets of devices using different technologies.
Okay, good. And I promise I'm not planting these answers, okay? So it's just naturally the answers come out. But that's true. At the end of the day, when you look at device fragmentation, that's what it means. you have so many different devices. It could be a $200 smartphone, it could be a $2,000 PC. So you have a huge variance in terms of devices, in terms of their technical capabilities. When we talk about technical capabilities, it can be resolution, refresh rates, a whole bunch of things. The second thing is also the software platforms. So why should you care about it? The reason all of us in this room should care about it is because when you build an experience, you don't know whether this experience is going to run on a $100 smartphone that someone is looking at through Google Cardboard, or whether it's going to be consumed through a $2,000 piece of equipment. So you have this device fragmentation. So that creates a little bit of friction, because if you have to go create experiences, which platform do you focus on? Now, obviously, a lot of softwares mitigate that by making it possible for you to create content and use it across multiple platforms, but you still want to ensure that there is a consistent experience across these platforms. That is where one more wonderful thing has happened, WebXR. So the whole concept here is, hey, what if you could consume AR or VR? So AR or VR, people put it in the XR bucket. What if you could consume AR or VR content through your web browser? Wouldn't that be awesome? So that way, for all of us, when we create experiences, you create an experience that works in a browser. Now, this browser can be on a smartphone, this could be on a PC, it could be on mobile AR, or it could be on a true VR headset. But that's the beauty of it, right? Through WebXR, it really reduces the friction. It makes it possible for all of you as developers to create content that can be consumed as extensively as possible. And here again, what we've seen in the last year and a half is interest in WebXR has gone up significantly. It was called WebVR earlier, and in the last couple of months, it has expanded to include AR as well. So we've seen developers and even brands initially not talk much about WebVR, and now when we talk to a lot of people, people bring up, oh yeah, I'm interested in WebXR. So these are some trends that we see. So the last thing I wanted to cover before we go to a topic that's near and dear to all of us, text, was what is the workflow that we see, right? Like when people want to create VR, AR experiences today, how do they go about doing it? Now, the beauty of something that is very creative is it obviously varies from from instance to instance, but generically speaking, this is what we see. So let's take a brand. I'll give you an example. Vivek decides to open up my own hotel chain. I'm done being a product manager. I'm going to start my own hotel chain, okay? I don't know how the hotel chain will do, but let's hypothetically talk about this example. So I decide to do my own hotel chain, and then I go to Bill, my colleague there, very smart. I go to him and tell him, hey, I want to use VR to drive sales. That's what I decide I'm going to do. So what might happen is I might have a very specific idea where I might go and tell him, I want to use this so that when someone books a room, and someone books a room in Hawaii, I tell them, hey, you know what? You just got the ground floor room. If you paid just $20 more, did you know you could have this wonderful scene? Did you know your family will love you more, or whatever it is, right? You can do that with VR. So I might have a very specific idea. Or the other thing that we see is a brand might tell, I want to drive my sales, and I know I want to use AR, VR, but I don't know how I'm going to use it. So you find two pieces of it. And the reason it's relevant for you is because when you engage your customers, when you engage a brand, they might have a very specific idea in terms of what they want to do with AR, VR, or they might be looking to you for inspiration. And in many cases, they also tell you, hey, I don't know what typeface would work well in this environment. I don't know what you need to do to make sure the typeface works well. That is your job to do, right? So then you would use a creation tool. A creation tool could be something like Unity, Unreal, Euphoria, a whole bunch of platforms to create the content. And then the content is consumed. Now, when the content is consumed, as we discussed, it could be through mobile VR, so essentially mobile. So it could be mobile VR, mobile AR. It could be through a dedicated headset. So this is the typical workflow that we see. So with that, let's talk about a few things that we learned from people when we spoke about text. Now, when we talk about text in XR, the conversation we would have with people is we would ask them, hey, so you're building this experience. You built this wonderful experience. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you use text? And what we found was, it's interesting. People fall in one of two buckets. They either use text or they don't use text. I know all of you thought I was going to tell something a little bit more exciting, but I'm sure some of you are going, okay, that's very obvious. That's true. So you have two classes of people, right? People who use text, people who don't use text. When there are people who don't use text, why do you think that is? Why do you think people don't use text in AR, VR? Okay, resolution. What else? Resolution, complexity. What else? Localization. Okay. That part of the room is very quiet. Come on. All right, I'm going to give you an answer. But yeah, so I think what we hear from people is when they look at text and they don't use text, it could be because there is no need for them to use text, right? So you think of a zombie game. People get excited killing a zombie. Okay, yeah, text, they want to see how many zombies they kill, but they don't get the excitement so much on the text side. They get the excitement on the zombie side. How many zombies did I kill, right? So there might be instances where people don't need text. That's one class of it. But the other piece of it is what all these wonderful people told, which is there are challenges with adding text. So you find people who don't necessarily use text just because of the complexities or because they don't think about it. So we went and asked a bunch of our customers, what they think about text in AR, VR. And the first one is my favorite. So I asked this customer, hey, what do you think about text in AR, VR? And his response, he looked at me like I was dumb or I was smoking something. Then he goes, of course I want the text to be good. I don't want people to have a bad experience. The exact words he used were, I don't want people to throw up. I know it sounds a little bit funny, but it's a real concern that people have. VR sickness, motion sickness is a big concern that a lot of people have when it comes to new technologies like VR. Now, text is it's a piece of it, but obviously no brand, no one wants to spend a lot of money, build an experience, and then the next thing you know, someone puts it up, and then they tell, I have a massive headache, right? So you want to make sure text is very legible. And I think that's even more relevant for the second example. You look at enterprises, you look at companies that use AR, VR. Why do you think enterprises use AR, VR today? Okay, training. What else? Testing. So at the end of the day, from a company standpoint, you use AR, VR. To me, I try to simplify it. You use AR, VR either to push up your top line. You want to close more sales. So that's where you have a marketing demo. You go to a trade show. Instead of me having 10 different device models, I have one device model. And then I tell you, hey, put this on. I'll show you the other things that are there. So you can drive top line. Or the other thing is, whether it's training or testing, you can reduce your cost. What they have seen, Harvard did a study which showed that by using AR, you can improve the productivity of your technicians. Anybody want to guess how much improvement you see? It's a guess game, guys. You can guess a number. No one is going to be held to it. By using AR, how much of improvement do you see when it comes to productivity? Okay, more than 50%. 10? Okay. So somewhere in between, up to 25% improvement in terms of productivity. What this means is if you are a big brand, whether you're an industrial brand or someone who has some specialized operation that needs to be done, by using AR, you can see a 25% improvement in terms of productivity. That's huge. If you're 25% more productive, that's significant dollars that are returned to you. So think about it. In those instances, you want to have text that is legible, because now I'm going to go spend $200,000 building this experience, and I want to make sure that whoever uses that experience gets the most out of it. The second class of people were people who don't use much text. And when we asked them, hey, why don't you use text? They told one thing, which was, text today has a lot of complexities. I don't want to deal with these complexities. It's a new platform. Or honestly, what we also find is there are some people who haven't thought about it. It's a new medium. There are so many other things people are dealing with that they haven't thought about text. And it's interesting. And I'll actually talk about a use case, an actual customer use case towards the end. What happened was when we told people, when we walked them through what they were missing out, they would tell, oh, I wonder what I'm missing out. By me not having text, what am I missing out? So all of our job, all of us as type or tech experts, text lovers, is to make sure that people make a cognitive decision around using text. If you don't use text, you don't use text because your experience doesn't need it, not because you didn't think about it. So let's talk about some of the challenges that people have when it comes to text. So all those of you who've used AR, VR, what was your experience with text? I'm sure when you put on your VR glasses, you looked at text. Don't lie to me. I know all of you did that. So what was your experience with text? how do you think text looked in a VR or an AR experience? Okay, horrible. What else did I hear? Okay, thank you. Shitty, horrible. So text in many of these experiences doesn't look, very good today, and that's what we saw. First thing is there are concerns with the quality of the text. Now, quality is a very subjective term, right? Now, when you look at quality, the quality of text can vary significantly depending on the device that you have. You might find that a $100 device, the text looks pretty bad, and then you have a $2,000 device, the text looks beautiful. Okay, that's good, but guess what? Most people don't have the $2,000 device. So when we talk about text quality, keep in mind the device fragmentation comment from earlier, because quality is very subjective. It depends on the device you have at hand. So when people complain about text quality, it really varies across devices. The second thing is challenges with localization. I mean, in the last 2 days, we spoke about all the complexities of different languages. Now, imagine having to deal with that in a AR, VR environment. The beauty of especially something like VR is it's 360 degrees. It's not just one-dimensional, it's 360 degrees. If I have text all around me, I have to figure out how I localize all of this text. How do I make sure the text all fits in nicely? So localization is a huge challenge that people have. The other thing that also concerns people, and I would tell this is more so on the, more so when it comes to OEMs or people who build software, is the resource burden. When we talk about resource burden, hey, how much of battery is this going to suck? So I have a demo I want to do later, but I had to charge my phone because I'm afraid that it's going to drain all the battery, right? So that is a concern that people have. And then when you look at things like VR, there are concerns with device heating as well. So there are a lot of technical concerns that people have when it comes to using text. And then the last piece of it is, AR is a wonderful thing. AR is beautiful because you get to be in this environment. But by virtue of AR, by nature of it, it's totally unpredictable. The environment is unpredictable. You don't know what the lighting looks like. You don't know what the background looks like. So these are some of the challenges that we heard from people. So I think the important thing to keep in mind here is when we look at text in an AR, VR environment, it's not just quality. There are multiple dimensions to this problem. So then we ask customers, we ask people, hey, so what do you do? When you have text that looks bad today, what do you do? So what we heard from people was, okay, they minimize text. They tell, if I don't have to use text, I won't use text. Or if I have to use text, I'll minimize the amount of text I have to do. Now, think about it. You're trying to sell, I'll go back to my hotel example. I'm trying to sell you a $500 hotel, and then the text looks very squiggly. What are you going to think? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to pay you that extra $20, right? But the important thing is, whenever VR or AR experiences are being built, you can't have text that doesn't look good, so people have to spend a lot of time massaging the text. What it means for all of you is, this is time that you have to spend making sure that the text looks good. And then the last piece of it is, they don't localize it. There is no, you find text, the text is not localized, or worse yet, they don't put any text because they don't want to deal with localization. And then, what else do you think people are doing? They don't do anything. They tell, you know what, it is what it is. It is a new platform. If the text looks bad, so be it. But this is what we saw. This is what we heard from, talking to people. And when I tell people, I use the term very broadly, but it's essentially brands who are looking at AR, VR, creatives like all of you who are either building these experiences or, designers, engineers. But this is really what's happening when it comes to text. Now, when you look at what we've been doing, our goal is we want to make it possible for people to express themselves no matter what the medium is. My job as a product manager is to make sure that brands can express themselves no matter what the medium is. Earlier, the medium was print. That became electronic. Electronic was desktop. Desktop became web. Web became smartphones. And smartphones is going to become? Okay, AR, VR. Okay, that was a cue. Smartphones is going to become AR, VR. So for us, we asked ourselves, how do we enable people? How do we make it possible for brands to express themselves in this new medium? And similarly, even for you designers create beautiful pieces of art. You create fonts. How do we make sure that these fonts can be used in an AR, VR environment? How do we make sure that these fonts show up with their character? They don't lose their character. They are legible, and they look beautiful. So there are two pieces to it. The next two slides, I know I'm preaching to the choir, because all of you guys design typefaces, so bear with me here. But obviously, when you look at it from a typeface standpoint, there is a balance, right? You have to strike a balance between legibility and brand identity or individuality. So I want something that's legible, something that's readable, but at the same time, you want something that expresses your unique character. And that's where a lot of research that we had done with MIT's Age Lab, Clear IP, helped us identify fundamental aspects of a typeface that make it legible. Now, again, you guys do this day in, day out. This might be motherhood and apple pie for all of you, but for someone like me who comes from a non-type background, this was, oh my God, now I understand what impacts legibility, because it's very intuitive. That's the beauty of this, right? At the end of the day, what makes a font legible, and we're looking at it purely from a font standpoint, not so much from a technology standpoint, is there are some aspects of how you design a font that have a significant impact on its legibility. And when we talk about legibility, this could be for an AR/VR environment, it could be for a vehicular environment. But in general, by following some of these guidelines, you can make sure that whatever typeface you design is legible. So that's one piece of it, the font itself. The second piece of it is actually a technology. So, we told how there are so many different devices, so many platforms that you can use to create content. So what we've done is we've built a technology. This technology allows you to render text that looks beautiful, both 2D and 3D text. The technology has native support for localization so that you don't have to worry about the nuances of all these different languages. And it works no matter whether it's a $100 device or a $2,000 device. And the best part of all of this is the technology is also free. So I'm sorry, I have to talk about the technology. I'm the product manager. I'm sure all of you guys understand that. But the technology is free. You can actually go download it from Monotype's website. It's a plugin for Unity, the platform that people use to create content. So if any of you are experimenting with AR, VR, I would highly recommend that you go download the plugin, because you'll get a first-hand feel for what this plays out, or the difference it makes. So now we're going to try something. We're going to try 2 demos, okay? Now, as all of you know, live demos are always fun. So we are going to see how it works. So I need a volunteer for a VR demo. Volunteers. All right. I'm going to pick that gentleman in the front. So what we are going to do here, and we'll see if this cooperates with me. What we want to do here is he's going to try on a VR demo, and we are going to see if we can beam that demo on there so that you can also see what he's seeing, okay? Now, this demo is a fairly simple demo. The goal of this demo was for us to show brands what they are missing out by not including text. So the whole point of it was, if you have text in a AR or a VR experience, how the text adds to it. It's going to take some time to load up. While it's loading up, so we were recently at a trade show. We had this demo. Someone from a bank came and looked at it, and they loved it. They told, this is awesome, because this gave me an idea. The idea they got was they wanted to build an AR demo where when you go to a mall, I go to a mall. OK, I have so many phones here, but OK, I'm going to take this one. I go to a mall. I hold up my phone like this, and then it tells you, oh, you're at McDonald's. If you have this mall's credit card, you get $2 off here, right? So this is really the demo that we want to show. It's a fairly simple demo, but the reason we want to bring this up is because when you think of AR, VR, the experiences and what they can bring to the table, text is an important part of it. Text is additive. So with that, all right. OK, don't worry, I got you. I'll make sure you don't fall off. OK, so as you can see, he's going to choose. So there's a little bit of a lag here. So don't worry, after the session gets over, we have 2 VR demos, headsets. You can try it on your own. But in this case, we've tried to pick a couple of scenarios, someone in a mall, someone in London. And in these cases, we want to show how having text would make a difference. OK, so now he's going to be teleported to a mall. And really what we want to show a brand is, if you have text in this in this experience, how that text would help you. OK, so Suspense is building up. Okay, thank God we are in. All right. So as you can see, unfortunately, the screen resolution doesn't do justice to it at all. But you can, as you can see, if you have text, so once you look at a text, just hold still, Luis. So once you look at text, you're going to hold still. What you will see is if you have text, okay, thank you. I'm going to request you to hold still. So what you find there is very simple, right? We want to tell a brand, if you had text, you can show information in a very native way. I think native is the key operating word here, because we've had experiences where I'd be standing next to Luis and telling him, hey, look at that text, look at that, look at that. That's the worst thing you want. The whole thing about VR is so that you're immersed in that environment, and nothing is more disruptive than having someone next to you tell all these things. So, thank you. We are going to thank Luis for being a good sport and trying this on. Okay, we can take this off. But we have this demo. You can try it on later. But the point of this demo is basically to show you how having text in an AR or VR experience makes a big difference. Okay, so the other demo I wanted to do was this one. So this one is going to be similar to what Bob showed you yesterday, but this is going to be more in terms of a comparison. Okay. All right. So you see two lines of text there, right? Okay. You see a top line and a bottom line. You see a top line and a bottom line, and then there you go. Look at those two lines of text. What do you notice? Other than the
top one's pixelated and slanted.
Okay. So as you point out, there is a big difference when it comes to quality between these two things, and that's really what we are trying to solve. When people tell they don't want to put text in AR, VR experiences today, AR, VR experiences today because the text looks bad, we want to solve that problem for them. That is what this technology allows you to do. So this technology solves that problem for you. So what that enables is whether you're a brand or a creative person, if you want to use text, that problem is gone. It makes it easy for you to use text in these environments. Now, with that, let's move on to some examples. I'm going to talk about two customer examples, okay? The first customer example is going to be around training. Training is expected to be a huge market when it comes to VR, AR. I intentionally did not put a number next to the B, just because you look at these reports, numbers keep changing. That's why I put it as B. So it's in billions, it's not in millions. But whether it's 5 billion or 10 billion, we'll see what that plays out to be. Now, why do you think people use VR for training? Why? What is the why? From a business standpoint, why do they use VR for training? Okay, you can do it remotely. Good. What else?
You don't need certain hardware or anything.
Okay, you don't need certain hardware.
You can do something wrong, like crash a plane, and it doesn't cost you a bunch of money.
Beautiful. Okay, so you can do it locally. It removes some of the risk associated with it. Maybe from a cost standpoint, it's not much. And all of you guys are right. That's what it comes down to. What you see is faster ramp up. Recently, a study was done which showed that people ramped up 35% faster. What that means is if you have a workforce, whether, regardless of what they do, they're able to ramp up to 35% faster than what they do. The second piece of it is the success rate. What we mean by that is, okay, I learn how to flip a burger. The first time I go flip a burger, do I set the place on fire or do I do a nice burger, right? That's what I mean by success rate there. But they see a huge improvement when it comes to success rate. Now, where can you use this? You can use this for something like this, and I love the remote example. This is where LOreal actually used VR to train technicians how to style hair. I know some of you are thinking, how complex can that be? I'll tell you a story. When I was a grad student, I wanted to save money. As grad student, you're always trying to save money, right? So my roommate and I decided to give each other haircuts. And it was so horrible. People did not even ask us, where did you go? They would ask, who did that to you? Okay? So that's how bad it was. And that is for something like hairstyling. Now, that's on one end of the spectrum. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have something like surgeries. You know what? In hairstyling, if you do it badly, you have a bad haircut. Here, that's a life and death situation, you know. So that is the beauty of using VR for training. One of the, among many things, is the fact that it gives you a safe environment. You can make mistakes, whether it's crashing a plane or by mistake, like, you know, doing a wrong heart surgery. You have the opportunity to make mistakes and learn from that. So the first example we'll talk about is a customer. Serious Labs. It's a company based in Canada. They were very kind to let us talk about them. So they actually create training experiences for the industry. So this could be for heavy machinery, construction, oil and gas. So what they do is it's beautiful. So they create a VR experience. You have a VR headset. You put on the VR headset. But they make you operate the actual equipment or the actual controls you would operate later on. So this is called an extended boom. I always used to call things like this a bulldozer. It's called an extended boom, apparently. So with this, what you do is you stand in one of those, you stand in that. You're using the same controls as what you would when you're using the extended boom. And now when you're going through your training, at every point in time, you're given instructions. They tell, hey, Vivek, don't swing to your left. You're going to bring that building down. Make sure that you're going the right way. And they give you very, very useful information as you go through your entire training. The beauty of this is obviously, you do training in a 2D environment, and then you go to 3D. You have to do the translation from 2D to 3D. Now you eliminate that entire thing by doing this. So the other thing, so I told them, hey, we would love to talk about you guys. So can you give us another example? So they gave us this example. This is an actual experience they built for one of their customers. Now they had to change the text for this forum. But what you see is essentially what you see on the left is the default text that they had to deal with. And they were able to use the right fonts and the technology to enhance it. So that is what it is. At the end of the day, our jobs as a team here is to make sure that through a combination of the right technology and fonts, we make information legible. We make it possible for people to consume this content. And it's the same thing, at an oblique angle too. Obviously, you don't have the same legibility as in the last one, but you see that there is a huge night and day difference when it comes to readability. So then I asked this customer, so they'd used this. I asked them, hey, so how important is text for you? What do you think about text? And this is what they told us. You guys are looking blank. All right, that was intentional. But that's what he told me. I loved it. He told, can you imagine being in a classroom? OK, I'm going to go back here. This is what he told me. He told, can you imagine being in a classroom where you cannot see what is on the board, you can't see anything on your book, or you can't see anything that's on your computer screen? That must be debilitating. It's the same thing here. When you build a training experience, you want to make sure that the text conveys that information. When we learn, learning is through a variety of mechanisms. You learn through visual. It could be pictorial. It could be text. So you need to have text that is legible. You need to have text that is readable. So that is paramount in use cases like this. The second example, and in this case, I kept it short just in the interest of time. This was actually a design and architecture firm. So what they do is they come up with architectural design. So going back to my Vivek's hotel chain example, so I want to build a hotel in Hawaii, and I contract this firm. They would build a VR experience for me to look at the hotel room. They would tell, hey, Vivek, if you build a hotel room, this is what it would look like. But they were not using text just because they just started dabbling with AR, VR, and it's just one of those things where, hey, I don't think I need to use text. So then we asked them, so if you want to convey information, how do you do it? Oh, it's very simple. The guy puts it on, I just tell them, hey, look this side, look at that side. And that's when we told them, OK, that's good. But you know what? There's a better way for you to do that. What if you use text so that it becomes a more native experience? A more native experience where I, the person who's going to build, who's going to commission the hotel, I walk through, I look at each of these things, and as Luis showed us, you might see text that pops up telling, OK, this is 200 thread cotton. This is like Italian marble. OK, this gives you a nice ocean view so you can charge customers more, whatever it is, right? But the whole idea is by using text as a part of their design, they are able to have a more natural conversation with their customers. And they can even localize it. Like many times when you deal with customers, your customers can be spread globally across the world. So in that case, if that text showed up in English, and then the next time someone looked at it and it showed up in an Asian language, then it showed up in Arabic, it makes a huge difference. So these are two examples where we were fortunate to be able to work with customers who are building AR/VR experiences and get a first-hand feel for what they do when it comes to text. So what next? For us, as I told, I know a lot of people in this room are beginning to look at AR/VR. For us, this is a topic that's near and dear to us. So, my ask is going to be, go check out the plugin that we have. It's free. Use it. Give us feedback. We're always looking to see how we can make your life easy. And then the second thing is, I know some of you here are looking at AR/VR from a typeface standpoint. That, again, is a topic of interest to us. So what I'm going to leave you with is this one, OK? So that's my baby, and I put a VR headset on her. I did that because, OK, don't worry, I did not put a phone in. I did not want to break the new baby, so I did not put a phone there. But and the reason I took this is two reasons, OK? The first thing is it's fun. OK, it's fun to put a VR headset on your baby. I didn't do it when my wife was awake. I think she would have murdered me. But anyways, part of it is fun. But the other thing is, on a serious note, though, what the medium that we look at, we might look at AR/VR as the new medium, but that will become the natural medium in the future. I think that's an important thing for us to keep in mind. The default medium, the medium through which people consume content changes over time. What you consume content with 5 years back has changed drastically when you look at how you consume content today. And that will change in the future. And we know that AR/VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, is going to be the next medium. So when you look at it from a typeface or from a technology standpoint, it's important to keep in mind, how do we enable that? So with that, thank you for your time. We do have these two demos. I have one. There's one demo in the back. You can try it out. And then there's also an AR demo. So I'd love to take any questions you might have. Oh, thank you.